Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us today. This is the 11th webinar in our series on the convergence of technology and wetland science. My name is Mike Connors, and I'm the Director of Customer Success at Ecobot. Today's conversation is going to be a deep dive on how our customers are using Ecobot in conjunction with other tools. I'm excited to have three of our customers with us today to share their stories, and we'll introduce them in just a minute. Down at the bottom of your Zoom window, you should see a Q&A button. Please use that to ask any questions that you have, and we'll address them as we go along. And also note, we're recording the webinar, so everyone who registered will get a follow-up email linking you to the video. Our host today is my colleague, Jeremy Schewe, co-founder and chief scientific officer at Ecobot, with nearly 2 decades experience as a wetland scientist. Go ahead, Jeremy, and kick it off whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you, Mike, and good afternoon or good morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. And for those of you who have been joining these webinars monthly over the last year, we're pretty excited to be coming around the horn here. And we've got some great speakers joining us today to share a little bit about their boots on the ground, as well as the conversion to the office of how they're doing their wetland delineations more efficiently. And so let's take a look here at conducting hyper-efficient wetland delineations. So just a brief synopsis of what we're going to cover today. We're going to, in some of the previous webinars, we've talked a little bit about the new Wetland Data Ecosystem. We haven't had a visit to the evolution of that in about 6 months. So we're doing a little bit of a revisit here to talk a little bit about the field prep side of things, getting your GIS data ready to GNSS receivers that Bluetooth to the devices that you're collecting data in, and then a little bit of a glance at what that field data collection looks like and the mapping in the field. And then we're going to hear a case study from each of our presenters here today, and then a brief intro to our webinar that's coming up in May, which will be our 1 year. And then we'll have some time at the end for you all to ask questions. And again, as Mike spoke to earlier, if you think of questions as the presentation portion of this is being shared, use that Q&A button down at the bottom. And then that will give us time to see if we're going to type answers or bring them into the live conversation at the end of our time together. So let's go ahead and take a dive in. So just to introduce our team here, we've got several guests join us. So Erica Pergande is up in just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and she is with SEH. And as a professional wetland scientist, she's mostly working in the southeast of Wisconsin, but she and her natural resources group are also doing work all over Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana. And then our second panelist and presenter is Chris Fleming, who has a Master's of Science in Botany. And he is based in Nashville and is one of the owners and leads of BDY Environmental. And they are growing. Pretty excited to report that. I think they just hired somebody in the last week or so. And they're mostly working in Tennessee and Kentucky. And then Jennifer Herrera, who is joining us from ESE Partners in Texas. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Biology and Ecology and works with ESE's Natural Resources Group, which is based in Austin, Texas, but their headquarters is in Houston. So really excited to have the three of them here and present with us today. So thanks for joining us, you guys. And we'll hear from them here in a little bit. There's also one other person that's going to be partly joining us for this webinar that I didn't tell these guys about. So we've got Jeremy Kenobi, who will be taking part in the presentation today as well. And he just wants you to know that these are the droids you're looking for. All right, anyway, so new wetland data ecosystem. We've talked about the importance, the critical important job that we as natural resource scientists play in the ascension of biological data into format that actually allows us to geospatially model and map. And one of the things that I feel is most important to reiterate here is that as we're doing that, not only are we conducting our reports and providing really a key voice for elements in the world that don't frequently have a solid voice to support them, but we're also are gathering information which is going to help with the creation of better policy, better planning, and the continuation of the growth of our nation at the same time as doing that in respect to our natural resources. So just to kind of open that up a little bit, so the new wetland data ecosystem, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at sort of this cross-orbiting of field apps, GIS software, GPS receivers, and then also, we've got drones that are playing a more and more important role in helping to plan and monitor long-term sites, whether they're wetlands or other sites that are being restored. And these technologies are all being utilized for both the large-scale planning, the resilience planning, the conservation planning, and within the context there of looking at where wetlands might already exist using prediction models that are available in various software suites. And then field applications such as Ecobot that we're using for conducting the delineations, doing the assessments, and then doing post-monitoring in mitigation sites. And so in the final point there, just leaning into that restoration, the planning, and mitigation. So today's focus, to kind of get into the granularity a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about field prep. We're not going to dwell there too much, but I just want to talk a little bit about that. Talk about Bluetooth enabled GNSS receivers, how those pair to our smart devices, and then of course how wetland delineations are being conducted in that sort of ecosystem of tools of Ecobot, collector, field maps, and then looking at post-processing and dashboard editing at the end. So let's go ahead and take a look at the field prep. We're getting ready to go out in the field and conduct our wetland delineations. What are the things that we need to do? I'm not going to hang out here too long, but these I think are some of the most important pieces. Most of you are already working with these, creating your base map and whatever tools that you are utilizing. I'm using ArcGIS Pro when I'm working with a project. And then how can, in some projects, especially when we're looking at projects, how can we potentially build a prediction model using existing LiDAR data, wetness indicator data, and then using some of the combinations of those tools in ArcHydro's extension with the WIM tool, or QGIS has multiple tools that can be utilized as well. So whether we're just creating a base map or we're creating a prediction model, doing both, taking the results of that and exporting those shape files to an iOS device so that we can utilize those files in the field. And so just to get into the granularity now a little bit, what does that look like? So with Ecobot, of course, we can download some basic aerial imagery so that you have your base tiles so that you can work offline and have a really high level of detail of what you're looking at in terms of the photos, and then be able to collect your wetland cells and units and also see your sample points within that. On the right, of course, we're showing collector and field maps. I don't have this warning or no more sign through collector because people shouldn't use it. Just as a reminder for people who do not know, collector is getting phased out in 2021. So if you aren't doing it, start looking at field maps because you're going to need to have migrated by 2022. And so within context of field maps on the far right, we can look at our individual projects and pull that open and also work offline. And so how I'm using that currently when I go in the field is I'm using Ecobot to do the mapping, but in field maps, is where I have all my parcel files. I've got my soil units from the USGS, and then I also have my NWI map polygons, so I can see those in there as well. And so I kind of use that as reference more than anything. But one of the exciting things that Ecobot and ESRI and our partnership are working on currently is creating a seamless bridge back and forth between those. But you'll hear a little bit more about what other people are doing here shortly. So let's talk a little bit about the Bluetooth GNSS receivers that we are pairing with out in the field. So most of you are familiar, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but on the far left over North America, of course, we've got our GPS constellation. And there's a finite amount of satellites that are available for that GPS constellation. And so with GNSS receivers, I've got that GNSS plus down in the lower left corner, just as kind of an invitation, if you don't already know this, that when you're using a GNSS receiver, you're also drawing from the European, the Asian, the Chinese, the Japanese, in Japanese and Indian constellations as well. And so what that enables is more coverage, better coverage, a lot more satellites during your time in the field. As of June 20th, there were 113 satellites in that GNSS constellation between all of those different regions that we can draw from. I believe that that number has changed, but I could not find anything giving me an update. So if anybody has an update for that, that's beyond that 113, I'm imagining there's probably at least a couple more up there at this point. But these are a lot of the GNSS receivers that most people are using when they're utilizing Ecobot and field maps or collector. So the Tremble R series, either R1, R2, or R12, the SX Blue series, also the EOS Aero series, and then the Juniper Geode. And we've heard great things from people who are utilizing all of these in the field, and we're going to get a nice mix of coverage of those today in our case studies as well. And then, so let's go ahead and take a look at the field data collection and the mapping portion of it, of the workflow here in this new data ecosystem. And so just taking a look here at Ecobot, most of you have probably heard, sort of these numbers, wetland delineations twice as fast, et cetera. And so just leaning into that a little bit, this isn't pie in the sky dreaming. This is what we're doing, whether that time's being picked up a little bit in the field, whether there's a lot of time being created in the office, but in general, this is what we're hearing. In some cases, we're hearing more time, sometimes less, but this is sort of an averaging. And what our customers are doing with that extra time, they're winning more bids. They're doubling down their work with the same size team. You can take on more projects when you're creating that much more time. And then we're also seeing a really nice upswing in terms of companies' profitability profiles. Also, for some of our government agencies, just seeing that way more, creating projects that are much more cost effective. Here, I just want to show a little bit of a video. We haven't updated this yet in the last couple of months. We should be getting an update here pretty soon for Q1 of 2021. What we're looking at here is just the utilization of Ecobot over time and over the last basically field season and a half. So just a lot of excitement there, just seeing what people are doing, what they're working on. And also, of course, a lot of these points that are showing up on here are going to correspond with the areas where there are the most wetlands. You can really see those bright areas really lighting up in there. So pretty excited about where things are going. And I'm excited to see what that's going, this video will look like at the end of this field season. So let's talk a little bit more about the GNSS receivers, how we're connecting those. So again, we're using the Bluetooth. So with that pairing, we're able to bring in the sub-meter accurate geospatial data actually into Ecobot itself. Again, within the respect of the data collection being in the field, you do not need the data connection in order to utilize Ecobot in the field. And so we've got lots of great lookup tools, such as some of the text, photographs, terminology, et cetera, from the Army Corps of Engineers, regional supplements, depending on what region you selected at the beginning of your field work. But then again, looking inside of the mapping, again, whether you're using the mapper in Ecobot or if you're using field maps or collector, being able to seamlessly jump back and forth between what you're collecting data-wise and then also what you're seeing out in the field. And so, you know, just kind of a last, like throw up a little sheet of screenshots from inside of Ecobot here. You know, we have built this tool from the inside out. You know, I've been doing wetland delineations for the past 20 years, and Ecobot is really run as a, you know, as a peer driven business. And so as our customers and as our partners, we continue to grow relationships with people, we're able to make this better and better so that it meets the highest expectations of our industry's workflow and completing the Army Corps of Engineers protocol for wetland delineations. One of the exciting things that came out of this winter already in terms of new functionality is we launched our dashboard editing, so that if you're gathering data in the field, once you're back in the office, you can make those edits, or if you're in the field kind of as a rotating project, you can also have people back at the office pulling down data or making potential changes as well. And then of course, the mapping portion of it is super exciting because we can seamlessly stitch back and forth by pulling the data in from our projects into ArcGIS and create the maps and models similar to what you're used to producing for submittals to the Army Corps of Engineers. So I think enough of that. I just wanted to kind of keep that super top level, but this is where we're working. Something that's ridiculously easy to use, something that is applicable company-wide, geospatially intelligent, creates a lot of efficiency, but again, more than anything, ridiculously easy to use. Woohoo! This is my team up in Lapland a couple of years ago when we still didn't have to do the face mask, out doing wetland monitoring up there. Super exciting stuff. So let's take a look at our case studies. And so first, I want to invite in Erica and have her tell us a little bit about herself and SEH and how you're using Ecobot.
Hi, I'm Erica Pergande. I'm with SEH and I'm in Wisconsin. I started using Ecobot last year, and I use it for all my wetland delineations. I currently, up until hopefully this week, have been using the Trimble Geo 7X. We finally got the approval to get a couple of the R1s. And so I'm really excited to start implementing that as well, to create even more efficiency in the field. So my case study is we did a tree farm last year, and there was a lot of kind of hits where there could be wetlands. And because I am, Wisconsin has what's called assured delineators. So we go through a process, and if the DNR determines that, you know, your work is up to standards, they don't have to concur with the boundary. And this benefits our clients with mostly time. They don't have to go back out there and confirm our boundary. The line that we put in is the line that's going to be accepted that very day. But in order to do that, there are some things that we have to do additional, and some of those are additional data points. Because they're not going out there, we need to be their eyes. And so we really need to prove certain areas are not wetland if they even remotely look like they could be wetland. And so with things like soils or potential hits topographically, we want to make sure that we're documenting those areas, even though we're out there and we're saying there is no way that this is wetland. We don't want there to be any question. So Jeremy, do you want to go to the next slide for me? So this was the tree farm that we did, and it was a pretty large site, 73 acres. And if you look at the map that came off the DNR website, this is called like a wetland indicator map. And so it kind of showed all of the areas that potentially could be hydric or potentially be an area where wetlands might have pop up. Also, because this is an area that is manipulated, it's really hard to see in some of the aerial photos what could be considered a wetland indicator, what might not be. It wasn't very straightforward. And so I knew that I had to do a lot of data points in this area. And the thing that helped me save a lot of time in the field was the clone feature in Ecobot. And that's because a lot of these areas were really the same. The soils were the same. A lot of the vegetation, you know, was a lot the same. We'd have to change some of the percentages, but, you know, we could go from point to point. We could look at the soils, you know, do a quick look and say, yep, this soil is the same as what we saw over at this data point. We can go ahead and clone this feature, change a little bit of the percentages if that's different or if something, you know, additional was planted there, and then move on to the next data point. It did save us time in the field, and it also saved us a lot of time back in the office because we had those data points. We had 20 data points ready to go. We didn't have to go back and transcribe all those data points that we took, which would have taken a good amount of time. And so because of that, we're able to get the reports out sooner, and just really kind of streamline the process instead of, you know, we probably would have actually had to go back out there another day had we not had Ecobot and been able to use that feature. And the project was an hour away from us, so that would have included another trip out there, so I mean, I was really grateful for this project, especially to be using Ecobot and to really maximize the efficiency on this site.
Great. Thank you, Erica. All right. So Jennifer, I believe you are up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm a biologist with ESE Partners in the Austin office. Sorry, I can't. Okay, there we go. I have been with this company for about 2 years now, and I adopted Ecobot through my supervisor, Nevin Durish, who is one of the first customers of Ecobot. So he's kind of relayed to me, you know, how much this app has saved and how efficient it is. But in regards to me actually like experiencing it, I mean, it's very efficient and it has helped a lot with the projects that I do. And I can imagine how much time it saves. But right now, what I got going on with regards with Ecobot is just the app itself on an iPad, and then the ancient Trimble GeoXT receiver. I know Nevin has tried it with the R1, but he just wasn't sure. There's a lot of tree cover in some of the sites that we have here in Texas, especially in the Houston area. So for now, I'm just kind of sticking with the Trimble and the Ecobot for my collections. Here at ESE Partners, our natural resource division is mostly located out of Austin, and most of our work is throughout Texas, mostly concentrated in Houston and South Texas. But the site that Ecobot was definitely the most important aspect was a 4,000 acre site in Waller County, which is about northwest of Houston. If you could go to the next slide, please, Jeremy.
I just have to say, I love that picture of you, Jennifer. You look very excited to push that button.
Yeah, thanks. So I had a 4,000 acre wetland delineation on this property in Waller County. It's a pretty wet area. A lot of the wetlands were kind of small, but you can kind of see them in the blue. We had about 50 wetlands mapped in that area. There was a particularly low area down in the southeastern corner of the site. So that was about 200, a little over 200 data points collected on this site. And we were out in the field for about 2 months total. There was like 1 month total, and then it was kind of broken up as they kept adding more. But we had large wetlands, as you can see. There's that 15 acre wetland up right by that transmission line, another 10 acre one up north, but even down to half acre ones and smaller. So Ecobot definitely was essential in collecting all of this data, keeping it organized, keeping it in one spot. You know, we had one iPad, you know, as long as we kept it charged, it was there. Transcribing that, I mean, it would have probably taken an extra week with those paper forms, kind of what Erica was talking about regarding like the clone feature and just being able to go back easily. Since this was such a large site, some of the vegetation varied. Just, you know, there was some more wooded areas, there was a little bit of more open pasture land, and, you know, being out there day to day, we would see a plant, you know, in the beginning of the week, and then at the end of the week, you know, might see it again and, oh man, what is that? So I really appreciated how easy it was, you know, oh, I remember it was this point, so I just go back in Ecobot, check out, you know, the plant list right there. Oh, easy, I remember it now. Kind of, it's just, instead of going through all the papers and whatnot, it was just really easy to go back for reference as well. So that, yeah, definitely saved a lot of time. Definitely was able to keep it a lot more organized. Oh, I have one more slide. Could you go to the next one, please? Thank you. So yeah, so we completed the field work, you know, under budget. It was, you know, a large project. I think because of Ecobot, I didn't feel overwhelmed. Honestly, it was my first project that I kind of took on my own for being such a large site. It definitely was less stress inducing to have all the organization and the efficiency of Ecobot as well. And being able to download the form super easily as well. That's very efficient. So I'm definitely a strong advocate for this. And yeah, I mean, we're able to start a project, complete it, jump on the next one. And that's in that photo, it's my coworker, Ethan. He's, you know, using the Ecobot app right there. So it's definitely a great asset to have.
You guys don't have any fun. If Nevin's listening in, you need to lighten up on your crew a little bit. All right, well, let's jump over to Chris, who's co-owner in BDY. You're muted, Chris.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. My name's Chris Fleming, as Jeremy said, part owner of BDY Environmental. I've got a master's in botany, but I've been doing wetland stream ecology work for approximately 20 years. Our firm, while it's based in Nashville, we work primarily in Tennessee and adjacent states. We do go to North Carolina and Kentucky and the northern parts of states to the south. So our workflow currently is Ecobot. We use ESRI field maps, and currently I'm pairing with an EOS Aero 100 receiver. We also have an R2 receiver. That's what I initially started using. But due to COVID, we went remote real quick. And we needed additional receivers. I didn't want to buy an R2, so I'd seen the Aero and reached out and purchased one of those for about a quarter of the price of an R2, and I won't look back. So if anybody's looking for something, but if you could go to the next slide, Jeremy. So this is just a case study. This is a project we worked on in January. We had I think we had 4 people on site doing the work. And, our scope was to delineate the boundaries of the wetlands. And, once again, going back to COVID, this allows us to, using field maps and Ecobot now with the interface, we can upload that data, from the field, and then people back in the office can have it immediately to work on, or somebody from their home. And so we use field maps for offline field data collection, and then we use the Ecobot for the wetland delineation sheets. So we're not using the built-in features. One thing we do like about field maps is the attachments that you can attach to every point you take. And I've attached up to 15 photographs on one individual point, and it's just nice to have that organized, geotagged and right there for you. So on this site, we delineated 13 wetlands, and it's cumulatively 3.63 acres, and there was 266 points, delineating the boundaries of each of those, of all those wetlands. For those 13 wetlands, I had 259 photograph attachments. We tend to take way too many photographs, but I would rather have the photographs when I get back to the office than not. And so, they're tied to the points, and you can view them in Arc Pro, you can view them in AGOL, and we run a script just to pull them out and, put them in a file so we can, use them for our reports. For this project, we did 19 regional field forms with Ecobot. I'm a huge fan of the back end of Ecobot that was recently put out. One thing I like about that, well, actually go to the next slide, Jeremy, if you can. I'll go into this and then I'll go back to that point. But the reason I like collecting our data like this is it's more structured, and it decreases office processing time. So you have multiple people working on a project or other projects, and what they're collecting and how they're collecting it. So if somebody shares data with you, you know what's coming in and how it looks. And then the Ecobot interface, this is something I really like. It encourages the user to fully consider all the indicators and plant species. When you're doing field forms, end of the day, you're burned out, you're sick of them, they're muddy, you can't even read them anymore. You can go down, it sort of, encourages you to read through all the indicators. And then all the, lookup tools, those are great. What is the soil indicator, and so you can actually read through those and see pictures, and it's a great help. Especially somebody that may be new to delineations. And then I'm a botanist, but sedges are terribleness. But the nice thing is if you go to the search tool and you can say, okay, I know it's this genus, and then you type that genus into the search bar and you get like 5 results, and you're like, well, 4 of those don't even occur in the state. So it's got to be this one. It allows you to deduce what you may have in front of you. And then on the back end, this is what I was speaking about earlier. It allows you to go back in and say, if I have Carrick Spa on something, I could take it back and key it out and then go to the back end and, identify it accurately. And another thing is with the dominance test, I mean, the prevalence index, you got real time calculations, and you could be like, a lot of the wetlands we look at are terrible. I'll be honest, their cattle's been rolling in them for 80 years. And a lot of these are, fairly marginal. You got a lot of upland species encroachment. And is it going to be below 3? Is it 3.1 or is it 2.85? And so that gives you an idea when you're in the field of what you really have. And then I like the real-time sharing of data. I'm in West Tennessee working. I need this report out. I just send it to the cloud. Somebody in Nashville can start on the report. It's nice, and it's allowed us to increase our efficiency on larger projects and meet client expectations and budgets. So, and I'm showing LiDAR right here. We're fortunate we have great LiDAR in the state of Tennessee, and that is a huge tool. In ArcPro, I'm using just their Living Atlas terrain hillshade. It's a great tool to identify channels or depressions or anything like that. So, and I got to say, my wife works for ESRI, so I have to tout ESRI software at every possible moment.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Chris and Jennifer and Erica. So for our 1-year anniversary, our May 19th webinar is going to be, the working title is Pitfalls of Ping Pong WOTUS Policy. I'm trying to go for a tongue twister here, but we've got some great speakers from all over the US who will be helping participate in that. So look for us again on the 19th to be focused a little bit more on policies, so sort of the other side from bootstraps up to policy. So we are going to jump out of the screen sharing here into discussion and Q&A. We've had a few great questions come in that we're going to handle. And so want to just thank everyone for participating in this thus far. So I guess how maybe the best way to do this is I'll just kind of run with the questions as they're coming in and go from there. But I wanted to kick us off with a general question here. So, we've heard, some various levels of granularity in respect to the to your all's workflow. What I'd love to hear from each of you, and maybe we'll go in the same order that we started. So let's start with Erica. But what do you appreciate most about this new data ecosystem for wetlands and the suite of tools that you're using and that your company has adopted?
I really love having everything at my fingertips, from being able to look up a certain soil profile to what the indicator of a certain plant is. 5 years ago, it was like you had a backpack that was like 40 pounds of all your books, your soil stuff, your plant books, your keys, your plant keys, your the Army Corps of Engineers plant list. And so now it's like really just having everything at the palm of your hand. You don't have to stop and put your bag down and get all your stuff out and figure out what page it's on. So even just the efficiencies in that way has just been great. I mean, my backpack is like a quarter of, basically it just holds my water and some snacks now. But it's been great for that, as far as just really being seamless and having all the tools that you need right at your fingertips. And I don't think that somebody that hadn't been doing delineations for as long as Jeremy has would have been able to really understand what exactly we need when we're out in the field and how to make it as easy as possible.
Great, thanks, Erica. Jennifer, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I really appreciate, as Eric was saying, the seamless, how everything is brought together, whatever you need. To me, I really appreciate the surety that I have, that's like I'm meeting client expectations, working efficiently and quickly, but still gathering quality data, still, being able to like look at the site, gather all the information that you need to make good calls out in the field, and make sure that you're getting everything that you need, you're looking at everything you need to, but not spending so much extra time. Be knowing that, we're doing a great job getting quality data, but still being quick and efficient, and all of the technology and stuff available is what enables us to do that.
Great, Chris.
I agree with all those points, and I think quality of data is probably the most important thing, and I probably find myself including more descriptive data on the data sheets than I would have previously. You can dictate whatever you want into those fields, comment fields, and it may not look like English when you're done saying it, but you know what you meant, and you can go back and fix that. When you get back to the office, you can do that. So.
Yeah, that's great. So that kind of leads me to like sort of a second tier of that question. So maybe Chris, you could go ahead and keep running with that, but leaning into that movement of data. Remember we used to have to like take chips out of GPS devices and plug it into something, and all the conversion of data and things like that. How are you finding that movement of the data from field maps and from Ecobot into your reports and your GIS software?
I mean, there's a steep learning curve, but once you get all the kinks lined out, it's fairly seamless. And the nice thing is if you use an Arc Pro and your field maps data is synced, you can add it straight from Portal into your project. So all your data is right there on your device on Arc Pro immediately, as are the attachments. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I could go back any other way. Like, I don't want to carry a camera. I like to use my phone. I don't want to carry another GPS. And I don't want to try to sync the track to my photos to geotag them, because that's just miserable sometimes. So it's just nice to have, everybody's got a phone in their pocket now. It's a great tool. And it's rather sturdy tool based on what I've done to mine, and it still works. So I'm embracing technology. So
great. Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really have much more else to add there, but it's just keeping it more together, more efficient. That's
I
really
think one of the things, we heard a funny story. I think it was last summer in the spring. We had someone who was a recent graduate who went in the field, I believe, with Kimley Horn, and it was their first wetland delineation, and they were using Ecobot and didn't think anything about it, of course. So we talked to him, we're like, yeah, whatever, it was cool. Yeah, it worked. Like, great. Then we got a call 3 weeks later. Holy cow! Like, I just went on this other project, and this office doesn't use Ecobot. We had to use paper forms. I was like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? Yeah, I always like to joke. I mean, I frequently throw a Star Wars slide in here somewhere, just because my idea started actually working in the Cherokee National Forest, Chris. I was doing T&E and delineation work out there for the Forest Service. And I was just like, man, I wish I had a little robot that would help me with this. And so, of course, my imagination is thinking a little R2-D2. So Trimble made the R2 for us, I guess. But when I launched Ecobot with my founder, Lee, he's just like, that thing that's in your pocket's more powerful than the computer that they used to send the first astronauts to the moon. They're like, oh, yeah, there it is. Like, there's the space that we can play with in respect to innovation. So,
and another thing I'd like to point out on that, Jeremy, is While we like the Aero 100, if you're just going out for a quick assessment, we really like Garmin Glows.
Okay.
We just stick those in our field vest. We don't need to delineate at high resolution. The Aero can get me down to 3 to 6 inches in an open field pretty easily, and it gets good in canopy. But if we're just doing a quick assessment, we just throw the Garmin Glow in our vest, and that's nowadays 5 feet is terrible, but
Right.
that's but it's good enough for just quick assessments.
Yeah, and I think, on behalf of so I use the R1 most frequently. I also use an EOS Aero occasionally as well, just to play with different things. Someone had asked earlier how some of these units work with heavier tree canopy coverage, etc. So certainly if you're going to be in heavy tree canopy coverage, you want to go towards the R2 or the EOS. What is, is it are you doing pretty good with the 100, Chris, with tree canopy covered too?
It's been good. I have no complaints. But there is a next, and that's sort of base level, but there's a next level you can go to. I think there's 2 other levels that are, gets up to survey grade.
Gold is the one that I think we've been playing with. It's either the gold. Yeah. So.
And the thing I like about that is the lightweight. It's half the weight of the R2, and it's smaller to drag through briars.
Yeah. So one of the, as a kind of a tandem off of that, there's a question from Erica that came in on the QA channel just asking about the cell signal. So, again, I think we spoke to this a little bit, but you don't need cell signal for Ecobot or for field maps to work. If you do have cell signal, then it enables you to do some extra things, and potentially you can send data up to the cloud so that your GIS manager or a project manager back at the office can look at things that you're doing out in the field, but you don't need to have any cell connection. Most places that I'm working in, that most of these guys are working in, probably do not have cell phone connection either. And so, yeah, major difference there. So one of the things, this is, I guess, primarily for Chris. How are you finding that that segue back and forth, like when you're using field maps and using Ecobot? I mean, for me, I just literally switched from app to app, but like, how have you seen that current workflow on your side?
What we usually do is, we'll take the boundary points and then go dig our pits, our final pits, and it's seamless. You can have them both running on the same device and just, double tap your button, or, they're both there. So it's no issue at all.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. There was another question that came in about mapping. Let's see. Well, James Teague is talking about wanting to get out of the field as soon as possible in the South in the hot summer. Well, all I can say there is, yeah, probably. Let's see. I know one of the questions I wanted to ask that we kind of spoke about early before we opened up the room to everyone was in terms of dashboard editing. Chris, sounds like you're using that a fair amount. I'm not sure how much Jennifer and Erica are using it yet. But when you do go back and do dashboard editing, do you find that there's certain things that in your workflow that you are that you're focused on more frequently? So maybe Erica, since you haven't spoken in a minute, let's jump over to you.
I do use it. I don't use it a ton. I really try and get most of what I need when I'm out there. But when I do use it, it's, to go back in or edit some vegetation, or if I happen to put the wrong project information as far as like maybe the project name. That's another thing that's really nice, is it just keeps, like once you enter that information, it's there. Whereas like when you're transcribing data sheets, you're putting it in every single time. What's the project name? What's the section township range? But it is really nice to also use it on a computer, and it's very easy to just quick make a change and save it, and you're good to go.
Great. Jennifer, have you been using the dashboard editor?
No, honestly, I do stick more to the iPad,
Yep.
but I'm going to explore the dashboard more now, though.
All right. So it sounds like you're similar to me in that way. Chris, I know you're using it a fair amount. You want to talk about your side of that?
I think it's, mostly what Erica was talking about is just, fixing the header stuff sometimes. And, I do dictate notes and words look weird and don't come out right. So I'll just go back and redo those, comment boxes sometimes, because the series not well suited to wetland delineation. But just in the species identification, I like to key things out. So
Yeah, that's great. So there's another question that came in asking if anyone is using Ecobot solely for transcribing their muddy chicken scratches from the field in the office, I guess using that dashboard. I know that there are some people that are doing that, but I think most people are gathering the data in the field in Ecobot itself. Are any of you gathering paper notes still and then transcribing that when you get back to the office?
I did it a little bit back last season when I was starting to kind of get used to the flow, or if I was like concerned about a data point, like I would like mostly write down what I wanted to add and then add it later. I mean, doing it that way doesn't really maximize the efficiency of Ecobot. It's definitely possible, and you always have such a nice looking product in the end.
Yeah.
But definitely I would recommend doing it from the beginning, because that's where you're going to have your most time saving.
Yeah, all the calculations and the indicator status and rolling everything up. Yeah, I think it's good. One of the questions that came in from Robert Burnt was, how long did it take for you guys to, his words are, get good at using the Ecobot software? So maybe, like how I think is that, how long did it take you to become efficient with the utilization of it? And maybe let's start with Jennifer on this one, since you just jumped right into the pot.
Yeah, it's so easy to use though, like it really is. So it just doesn't take that much time, it's kind of more getting used to where things at, what how you're gonna add the data, and exactly that. Just basically getting used to where everything is, and then after that you're just set, because it's so straightforward. I don't remember having any issues at all jumping straight into it. It was just like, okay, cool, here's this, all right, great. And yeah, it's great.
Erica?
I think it's so user friendly, and it's also just super intuitive. I mean, I didn't have any issues, and I'm not like the most tech savvy person. But just even the way it's set up with some of the dials, it just makes it super easy, like with the soils. You're not sitting there typing out NYR. Like there's a dial, you click it, 4, 6, it's so intuitive and so easy to use. I think anybody could probably do it very easily. There's really very little learning curve if you've used any apps at all.
Chris, you want to add to that, since you've been around the block like myself?
I mean, if you can use any app on your phone, you can use Ecobot.
Right.
So
yeah, pretty simple. So a couple like short questions that I want to answer. One, is there a way to access local soil survey data? So yes, if you do have a data connection, there's actually a soil lookup where you can actually see where you're geospatially located in the field, and it'll tell you what unit you're in. However, I would suggest, if you're going to be working in an area that is going to be most likely outside of cellular or data connection, that you think about utilizing field maps, so that you can just download those soil shape files into your background tile, and then just have that as your reference for your bullet. Someone else asked if this works in Canada. I'm aware that Canada, a lot of the Canadian provinces are using sort of a similar derivative of the Army Corps' protocol. So currently we have not put the official Canadian forms in, although they're almost identical in many ways to some of the US forms. So that's something that we are working on. So Kelsey, if you're still on the call, I'd love to hear more from you. We have the regional forms from some of the areas up there, but not for all of Canada. So if you want to shoot me something, that would be great. Please do reach out. So I guess as a final piece there as well, what regions have this been calibrated for? So Ecobot has been is built so it covers all of the regional forms. So not just the continental US, but also Alaska, the Pacific Islands and Hawaii, as well as the Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands and territories as well. So we do have folks using those in those areas as well, especially the Caribbean and Hawaii. So I think the last question, I know we have just a few minutes left, but one of the fun questions that I always like to ask from perspective of speaking with other scientists is, what do you love about your job the most? And I'd love to start with Chris and roll back. What do you love about doing wetlands work and natural resources work?
I like to just be outside and not be in an office all the time. I like to see new things, and I like new challenges, and I feel like wetlands can be challenging. You know, that's especially forested wetlands, they'll make you scratch your head. So, but yeah, just like challenges and being outdoors, I guess.
Yeah, great. Erica?
I would say that's similar. I love the aspect that I get to go out in the field and I get to play outside in the mud, but I also like the fact that I get to come in and I get to work on writing reports, and I feel like I'm using like two aspects of my brain. And yeah, I like that there are unforeseen challenges all the time with doing field work and navigating those. So I love it. I really do.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, the outside portion, definitely. I also like seeing areas that are yet to be developed. You know, I think it's kind of like a cool insider look on, you know, you're going to build an apartment complex here. This is what's here before. Just kind of like, or even areas that have been developed around, or, you know, before impact. You know, I love thinking about, you know, what was this area like before, just kind of getting a glimpse of history in a way a little bit. And then also just, you know, kind of being an advocate for these wetland features, you know, if they are protected, and playing a part in that. I really appreciate that aspect of my job. Kind of like, you know, hey, you know, we need to protect this, or trying to give some ideas on how to, you know, navigate, change a project or something like that. I really like that.
Yeah, and I do as well. And I think, you know, I just want to honor you all and honor the other participants in this today for the work that you do, and being a voice of science and a voice of reason in these interesting times that we're in, and making sure that things are done in the proper way. Yes, we're going to have growth and we're going to have change. What are things going to look like in the future? And part of what we are all doing is helping to shape that in a good way, and respect for our natural resources, so that the next generations have something to look back to as well. So thank you all for your work. Thank you all for joining us today. You guys were great. Thank you, Chris, Jennifer, and Erica. And thank you all to all you participants who came in, and thank you for all the great questions. This was a great discussion, and we'll look to see you all out in the wetlands somewhere in the near future. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll talk again soon, and hope to see everybody on May 19th for the ping pong policy. All right, take care, everybody.